Hello, and welcome to another episode of the MiamiHal Real Estate Show, where every single week I have great guests. This one you've seen before. She's a somewhat regular on the show, and she's the only one that I remember that can actually sing. And she's going to do that for you. This is Elena Kemper.
Hi.
She's a fellow realtor. She's with Berkshire Hathaway Home Services, which is a local company that some of you may know from ages ago as EWM. Elena, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you very much.
Great.
Okay, so you want me to sing the song?
Yeah, but I have to give a little background about this. Elena is a wonderful agent, and she sets herself apart sometimes by doing a little singing, and it's a theme song that matches our business. So please go ahead, take it away.
All right, you got it. We're matchmaking realtors that love what we do. We'll list your home, we'll sell it too. We're matchmaking realtors that you will find nice when we can get you the price.
That's wonderful.
Thank you. Thank you.
And it really underscores your personality. You're very good at what you do. You've been doing it for a long time. But when you sing like that, and honestly, when you talk to somebody, your personality is what shines. And ultimately, when people work with a realtor, they should have a personality match, right?
Oh, thank you. Yes. And I've been doing this over 44 years. I still love what I do. I remain passionate about what I do. Love making people happy and love trying to match things up. And that's why I wrote the song, We're Matchmakers, so I can match the buyer with the seller and get it done.
Total sense. Get it done.
Right.
I like that you put that into the sentence because nothing matters until we have buyers and sellers that ultimately agree and get it done.
Exactly.
Right? Okay.
Exactly.
So you've seen a lot in your 44 years, all kinds of markets.
Yes.
And I would tell you, or at least I would think, we're in a market that really doesn't echo anything in the past.
I agree. I absolutely agree. It's a very strange market. There's lots of buyers out there, and now I think there's more sellers than buyers. And when I meet a seller, I explain to them what their house is worth and why they should offer a certain commission. I will not take a listing if the offer is only 2% commission. I think that commission-wise, so that the buyer's agent knows that they're going to be paid, should be a minimum, in my opinion, of 2.5%.
And everything you're talking about is an opinion.
Yes.
Because there is no standard. There's no you must.
That's right.
It is negotiation, as it always has been.
Right.
And so this is something that I've talked about on the show before, but we're going to get your unique perspective about it. And it has to do with these commissions. So before August of 2024, the old way of thinking, which we're not doing anymore, right?
Right.
Was when you signed a listing agreement as a seller, you were agreeing to an overall commission, which would cover both the listing brokerage and a buyer's broker.
Correct.
So in one fell swoop, the commissions were decided and kind of done early on. And now, for a number of reasons, which we won't get into, it's changed.
It
and
has.
How it has changed is that a listing brokerage cannot advertise what the commission is going to be to a buyer's broker. That's the key of it.
Yes.
And on the listing agreement, it's now broken up where obviously the listing broker's commission is a particular amount. You decide what that is. And then there are 3 options for the seller on how they may want to handle commission for a buyer's broker or the buyer.
Right.
And the 3 boxes are simply, and it really is simple, but people have a hard time getting over the old school stuff. The first box that you can check is that the listing brokerage would pay a buyer's brokerage a portion of the overall fee.
That's right.
That's checkbox A. Checkbox B is I'm going to pay a certain amount to the listing brokerage, and if the buyer's broker comes in, I will pay directly, meaning the seller would pay directly to a buyer's brokerage.
Okay.
And then the third box is I'm not going to decide anything right now. There's no compensation being offered to any buyer broker. So I have a way of doing things, and it sounds like yours might be different. When you sit down for a listing, how do you guide the seller to fill out those 3 checkboxes? Which one
Well,
you
the
got
one
yours.
for sure, what we are paid as the listing agent, and I absolutely always guide the seller to offer the selling agent, unless they're being paid separately from a buyer,
Mhm.
a certain percentage. And I believe it should be a minimum. This is just my opinion,
Right.
a minimum of 2.5%.
Okay. And just so that we understand what your thought process is, why would you recommend a 2.5 at least commission to a buyer's broker?
Because a lot of agents aren't going to show the house if they find it's less. They'll sell it to somebody else. I hate to admit to that, but everybody's out to make a living. And if they find out we're only giving them 1%, they're not interested in showing the house. And if they have to show the house, they're not going to give the price that that seller deserves. And this is my opinion. Okay, it's all about pricing. And so that's how I feel. I don't know how you feel.
And I'm going to share that with you because we haven't had a chance to do this privately, so I'm going to do it right here on the show.
Great.
I from a mile high view, I like the changes that happened since last August. I like it because if I go out looking for a piece of business and a seller chooses me, ultimately, if I'm successful for them, they should pay me. But that seller did not choose the buyer's broker. So I don't necessarily, in the old school, they were paying them too, but they didn't even know who they hired to do that, right? So it was a little bit odd. I love the fact that now buyers have to sign a buyer broker agreement so that they're actually the ones paying their professional for the
Right.
work that they did. And as always, the seller is paying the professional that's helping them sell a home. The difference, and a lot of people are starting to get this, is when a buyer signs a buyer broker agreement, we'll use an example, could be different. I'm going to pay my agent 3% of the purchase price of the home that I select. And when I close, I'm going to pay that.
Right.
However, if the seller or the selling brokerage is providing money to that broker, then I'm going to offset what I owe you. So for example, in your example, you're saying 2.5% is what you're going to offer a buyer's broker.
That's right.
If the buyer broker agreement with that buyer is 3%, they're going to come 1.5% out of their pocket to pay their professional, their agent.
That's right.
And the other 2.5 is coming from ultimately the seller, but through your brokerage.
Right. No, I agree.
Makes sense, right?
It does.
Everybody
It does.
pays their own professional.
Exactly.
I don't have to pay anybody else's attorney.
Exactly.
So why am I paying somebody else's realtor?
Well, the only thing that my nose is itchy. Sorry. The only thing that I must say that if an agent brings in an offer, they're doing their job too, because they're entitled. If their buyer is not paying them, they are absolutely, in my opinion, entitled to be paid, bringing an offer that's fair and my seller's happy with. So that's what I tried to explain to sellers.
Yeah.
And sellers are really being very reasonable and very understanding. I had a client that said, Elena, change the commission. It was in the Gables from 2.5% to 3%. I need to get it sold. Okay, and that was unusual, but that's what she wanted. It turns out that I was able to sell it myself, and I worked out a deal with the seller, which the seller was very happy with. Yeah.
And I didn't give you a full answer. I only gave you half an answer from my side. So those are the 3 check boxes. And that's my philosophy about everybody pays their own professional. I am guiding people to not put what the percentage is going to be. I'm saying check the 3rd box. I'm not going to automatically pay anybody anything. Make it part of your offer. And so when agents that are showing my properties call me, remember, we can't advertise, but when they call, we can certainly say what is predetermined. In your case, there's usually a predetermination as to what the commission is going to be. And in my case, when somebody calls me, I say, the seller has chosen to ask you to put that in as a term of your offer. So it's a negotiation. It's part of the whole thing. And now I'm going to tell you a little bit, and the audience too, a little bit of the dark side, right? You and I, if we were ever to do a deal together, there's mutual respect. We know each other. We've done deals in the past. And so we know what to expect from one another. But there are a relatively large number of agents out there that are not going to act as professionally as you and I do. And in some cases are really a detriment to a deal happening. So that's why I feel like, hey, if you want to get your commission, negotiate it with your offer. I'm not going to have a seller automatically pay you 2.5 or 3 or 2 or anything for that matter up front, because are you worth what you're going to get paid? And I say earn it. That's my philosophy. What are your thoughts?
Well, let me ask you. So this is interesting. So when you take a listing,
Yep.
you said it's line 3 that you do.
Choice 3. Yes.
All right.
Yeah.
So I call you, Hal. I have a buyer that's interested in looking at your house. What is the commission? What would you say?
I would say there's no commission that's being offered up front, and the seller is willing to pay a commission, but it depends on your deal. So please make it part of the terms of your offer.
Okay.
And it's been working.
Okay. I do the opposite. I know.
That's why it's a great conversation piece for the show.
I will tell immediately what the commission is.
Right.
Okay. And obviously it's subject to the seller agreeing with the price.
Agreed.
If they don't agree with the price, then the commission can change. Okay.
Agreed.
I've had it where, guess you came in much lower, so this is what it is now. But I like to produce what it is going to be immediately, not, bring in your offer and then we'll talk about it. I like to tell them it's a 3% on this, get the job done. If we get it right, you get 3%. If we can't negotiate properly, then it changes.
Yeah. All right. So the other thing that I wanted to just kind of bring to the table, because I would love your perspective on this, and thankfully it worked out very well. But after the big change and commissions were, a choice, a further choice, I had a seller who did choose to say, I'm going to provide 3% to a buyer's broker. And then had a number of people call, I want to come see the house. And one of them turned out, and I have to do a quick aside, there are 2 levels of people that can come out and professionally show homes. There's agents. I am a real estate agent. Mm-hmm. And then the next level up with a lot more education and some responsibilities, a real estate broker.
Okay.
So the person that called me was a broker. And you would think with the extra education that they would know what they were doing. And this particular individual did not know what she was doing. So I said to them, there's a 3% commission owed, but what does your buyer broker agreement say? And her answer was, I have a buyer broker agreement. I said, well, what does it say on there? She said, it says 0%. I said, well, then what are we doing? Why are you asking me what my seller is going to pay you? You can't get paid. Do you know that? You can't get paid. And she said, what are you talking about? I said, the way that at a closing table, a buyer's broker or agent or broker or agent gets paid is by what the agreement is on that sheet.
Yes.
So even if my seller still wanted to pay 3%, because yours says 0, you're not allowed to take any of that money, and all 3% would actually go directly to the buyer. That's what the law is. So I had to educate a broker.
Right.
Now, ultimately, as she brought her offer, I suggested to her to go and get her buyer broker agreement redone, the proper amount to match what my seller was giving them.
Yeah.
And she got it done.
Yeah. Well, because you were kind enough to educate that particular person. And,
that is correct.
because there's a lot of agents that are relatively new that are kind of disappearing because the market has changed. So it's important, if you've been around a long time, to always be kind and giving and explain things that they may not know. Right. I'm a big believer in that.
So now we're going to talk about the current market, because as you said a little bit earlier, this is a very different, or strange, maybe you even said, market.
Yes.
Tell me why, in your mind, it is a strange or different market today.
A lot of it has to do with, in my opinion, everything is my opinion, the economy. The interest rates have gone up. Listen, it's crazy, because when I started, interest rates were 18%. So to me, 7% or 6.5% is nothing, but for a lot of new people, it is. So, I believe that the interest rate, I believe people are afraid of the economy and what's going on.
Yep.
If you look at listings in a place called Pinecrest that I do a lot, you'll see so many homes that have been reduced. It's unbelievable how many homes have been reduced. I try to price homes properly so that we can get it sold. For example, I have a home in Palmetto Bay. I went on the appointment. I told them what I thought it was worth. I gave them a range of $699 to $725. They did get $699. We did do inspections, and there was a little cut there, but they're thrilled. And as long as you educate your seller as to what they should expect, you're in good shape.
So nationally, there was a statistic that came out, I think about a week ago, which said there's 500,000 more sellers than there are buyers across the country.
Yeah.
We typically have, a much better picture here in the Miami metro area, and I think we do. But I, like you, feel like there are more sellers than there are buyers right now.
It's a definite. All you have to do is go on the computer and it'll prove you. I mean, for me to put a house in Homestead, which I'm taking off the market, he's a wonderful man, for $315,000. It's a twin home, 2-bedroom, 2-bath, 1-car garage for $315,000, and I can't sell it. We've decided that he's going to move back. Okay. The economy is very weird.
So in that particular instance, you brought up a price point, not that exact dollar amount, but I am looking at the market today and I see different markets in pricing tiers. So if you're talking about a Pinecrest home over $2.5 or $3 million and up, it's a very different market than certainly even Palmetto Bay at $1 million.
You're right.
And it's certainly different than that Homestead property at 300 and some odd thousand that you just mentioned. What do you think about those three tiers, and where do you think we might be going in those three tiers of pricing over the next 6 months?
Well, in Pinecrest, for example, the pricing was crazy, and there are reductions. I mean, I'm getting a listing in Pinecrest on a fabulous street and a fabulous avenue, and it's a big house. It's a great house. I'm going to put it on the market for either the high sixes or $7 million. And frankly, I wasn't positive. So I hired an appraiser to double check that my numbers were correct. I think it's important.
And I bet you got it right on the number.
Well, he's going to let me know later. He's going to let me know later. But yeah. I don't like to be wrong. So if I think I'm not sure about something, I'll spend the money to find out. Because my philosophy of life is, in order to make money, you got to spend money. So it's okay to spend money on an appraisal to just double check your work.
Yeah. So you're pricing something around $7 million in Pinecrest.
Yes.
And what's your expectation of the market both today, like you're going to put it on really soon, or 6 months from now? Is that house worth the same in 6 months?
I'm hoping so.
Okay.
I'm hoping so, yes. You know why? Because it started a lot higher. It started 6 months ago or a year ago at close to 9 million. It was crazy. And then 8 million. And that house is located near a home that's being built that's 15 million. So the location is fabulous. Okay. So I hope that we can get it done.
Let's talk about the Homestead property. Right?
Yes.
This home, which you believe to be worth 300, what did you say?
15.
315,000, and it's not going to be for sale for much.
No, I'm taking it off today.
6 months from now, is that a $315,000 home?
I think so.
Okay,
I absolutely
so you think there's stability in pricing?
There is, and it all depends on the value of a specific home. I mean, when you're talking 15 million or 10 million or 7 million,
most people can't.
Yeah, but the people that can have a lot of money.
Right.
Okay.
It's cash deals is what I want to emphasize.
Exactly.
So it doesn't matter what anybody else cares about. The seller and buyer come up with a price, it's done.
Exactly.
Essentially.
Yeah.
Rather than a lender having to say, well, no, we don't appraise it there.
Right.
We don't care.
Yeah.
You're not buying that home, or we're certainly not going to finance that home at the price you currently have a contract.
Yeah. Appraisals are very important.
Yeah.
Very important. And I'm a numbers person. I love numbers. So if I'm insecure about a number, that's when I'll hire an appraiser.
Okay. The mid-tier, the Palmetto Bay home you mentioned, what kind of pricing is that?
That was a deal. Okay. 5 bedrooms, 3-bath, pool, 2-car garage, lake. Priced at $725.
Okay.
Went for.
Why didn't you call me first? I would have bought it.
I wish you would have told me. I would have.
Okay. Yeah. So let's take an average Palmetto Bay home, because I want to do averages and talk about that.
Yeah.
No.
That was Cutler Bay. That wasn't Palmetto Bay. Okay. That was Cutler Bay.
Okay, that's
okay.
Different.
The average.
Don't call me for that.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, but the average in Palmetto Bay isn't that about $1 million today?
$1 million too.
Yeah.
So let's say you take a listing and you price it right, and it's $1.2 million home in Palmetto Bay. 6 months from now, same price.
If it's not sold in 6 months, then we have to talk about the price.
This is what I'm contemplating, and nobody has the right crystal ball. We hope we're right, but I'm telling people, you know what's going on today, and you don't know what's going to happen in 6 months. And I don't see interest rates going down significantly in 6 months. I think that we have additional uncertainty, I'll call it, globally between now and the next 6 months. You've got more sellers than buyers. Where do prices go?
Well,
They have to come down, don't
they
they?
have to, exactly. I mean, if you can't sell a house that you priced right in the first place, what you thought priced right in the first place,
Got to come
then
down.
you have to bring it down.
Okay.
Period.
So we're at the heart of the matter,
Yeah.
which we've done before on the
Yes.
show, but under different circumstances because, we have politics going on, we've got global conflicts going on, we've got interest rates where they are. So what do you tell a seller before you sign a listing agreement? You're kind of pitching them and saying, here's what's going on. How do you talk about the market, and how do you say this is how you should approach selling your home?
It's funny, Hal, because a lot of times I'll go into an appointment and I'll say, this is what I think based on my expertise and based on the facts. If I can't get it sold, but I'm doing a good job, would you continue with me? Well, I had one guy who's an attorney said no.
Okay.
Well, and then after selling it after 3 months, he said, I was just kidding, Elena. But, great joke.
Oh,
But I believe
right.
that if they like you and trust you and see you're doing a good job, they're going to continue with you. They're going to listen to the latest facts. I mean, I don't know about you.
I absolutely agree with that. And that's why every single day I go out trying to be the person that I would like to have if I were selling my home or if I was buying a home. You need honesty. You need to be transparent. And, you got to be a great communicator, whether that's good news or bad news.
That's
and
right.
Sometimes we have to deliver bad news, and other agents will hedge and try to say it with, a bunch of sugary language.
Yeah,
And
no.
I just say, listen, I have to tell you this because it's important. And this is the bad thing that just happened. How are we going to get around it? And I partner with people. I don't use the word partner lightly. I really take it to heart. I think it's important.
Hal, you're a very good agent. You're very respected in the industry, and communication is the key. I always tell my little group, please always give feedback. Good, bad, or indifferent. You always have to call them back and give them feedback because people need to hear that.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's switch a little bit to buyers. Are
Okay.
you working with some buyers now?
Right now, actually, yes, I do have a couple buyers tomorrow.
Oh.
Yes.
How did you introduce them to what's going on in the markets that they're looking? What did you say to a buyer? Hey, I'm Elena, and obviously you've fallen in love with me, so you're going to work with me. Here's what we're going to do. What did you tell them?
Well, I give them the facts in a basic area. If I know, like for example, today I showed Homestead, and it was to a former client of mine. He wanted to buy something for his mom and his mother-in-law, and they were a steal of a deal. But having been in the business a long time, I didn't believe it would be the right fit. So I talked them out of it. A lot of people, I don't think, would talk people out of it. I do all the time, and they come back to me in a different way. So tomorrow I'm working with somebody, and it's in the 800-900 range. I'm going to show something in a nice little area. We'll take a look at it. Once they see it, if they like it, I'll let them know what I think it's worth in today's market. And what it's worth today could have been very different a year ago.
And it's interesting that you just said that, because one of the things that I not fear, but I'm very aware of is that as agents, we always talk about, hey, there's trends. So 3 months from now, 6 months from now, it might be different, or 3 months ago it was different. With what's going on in the world today, literally yesterday could have been different vastly from today.
I know.
And so with that uncertainty, people are generally closing their purse strings and not doing anything. So the next topic is negotiation. So whether you're a buyer or a seller, how are you preparing people, and how do you walk them through a negotiation to get into contract?
I give them the facts. It's very easy. I mean, I'm lucky. I've closed about 30 million this year already. And every deal I made, I explained what I thought the numbers would be. And if they trust you, they listen to you. And, you don't have to be a rocket scientist to go on the computer and say, all right, in this neighborhood, this is what sold per square foot. This was in better shape, blah, blah, blah. And if they trust you, they're going to listen to you. And that's how you bring the deal. I work very well with buyers.
Okay. So we get into contract, and then from contract to a closing table, typically around 30, maybe even 40 days. But there's a lot of things that can happen once you're in contract.
Inspections.
And the big one now is, well, it's always is inspections. And the weird part is we just came out of 5 years ago, COVID, where people were putting in offers and getting in contract with no inspections at all, which was part of the craziness. And,
Yes.
And as far as I'm concerned, I will use a stronger word, stupidity of
Yes.
our market back then. So tell me, how do you go through the bumps and hurdles of after we're in contract and before we're at closing?
It's easy. It's easy.
From a 44-year veteran.
Yeah, it's easy. We do the inspections.
Yeah.
We wait for the results on the inspections. If they're minor things, we don't worry about it. If it's big, we have to discuss it once that's over. Good. We've agreed on the inspections where it's a credit or we're walking away or whatever. And then we just follow up with the lender to make sure that they do the appraisal, the place appraises. I've never been wrong yet, please God, knock on wood, on an appraisal. Okay, because that's important. I mean, when I tell the seller this is what it'll appraise at, again, unless I've hired an appraiser, I'm certain that I'm going to be correct. And that's important because the appraisal and the inspections are the toughest things. We usually know ahead of time that they will qualify because we check with their lender and so forth. How about you?
Basically ditto, right? Have you seen the sellers changing their stance on how they deal with negotiations in inspection contingencies and other things, again, between the contract being signed and closing? Do you find that sellers are more willing to bend? Do you think they're just as rigid as they have been over the last couple of years?
I think they're more willing to bend.
And tell me why.
Why? Because of the economy.
Okay.
Because of the unknown. And so they are like this one lady who I adore. She was originally very firm, but when I spoke to her and I said, listen, this is a good price. We sold it within 2 weeks. We're only talking $5,000. That's nothing in the big picture. She listened to me and she signed. So I think sellers are being more reasonable, in my opinion.
Got it.
How about you?
I am seeing that sellers are definitely willing to bend, but not break.
Yeah.
And there's still kind of a stigma because in relatively recent history, during and post-COVID for about a year, it was like, as I said earlier, crazy, absolutely crazy. And the sellers had complete control.
Those days are over.
Okay. Does that ever return in your mind?
Will it return? You never know. You never know.
44 years of history tells you that history repeats itself.
Yeah, it does repeat itself. Yes. And when I go on listings, these sellers think, oh, we're going to get multiple offers. I said, that's not happening anymore. And it's not. I don't know if you've had multiple offers on anything recently, but I haven't.
No.
Yeah.
It goes back to one of my rules, and I think you and I may have discussed this many shows ago. I walk into a listing appointment, I talk about it, the more than one rule. I said, what's that? It means my goal is to have more than one person at the same time interested in your home. Because if we do that, you don't have to negotiate anything. The two buyers are going to bid each other up to the highest reasonable number and reasonable terms that you're ever going to get. So my goal remains in any market, the more than one rule is what I'm trying to satisfy. And then it becomes an easy game.
It does, if that can happen.
Yeah.
If that can happen. I'm not seeing that as much anymore. But for example, the one in Cutler Bay, we did get another offer. It was lower, okay, and then the second offer was higher, and the seller was a doll, nervous but a doll, and she listened to everything I said. So now we're waiting for the appraisal, and I'm positive it will appraise.
One last question. Since we don't have a lot of buyers and we're not getting those multiple offers, one of the things I learned from a lender a long time ago, somebody that owned assets and sold them with me, was the first offer is always your best offer. Talk to me about that.
I would say that is 99% true.
Thank you.
99% true.
For those of you that have listings with me, please listen to that.
Yes.
Because it's difficult to get a second offer or a third or a fourth.
Yeah.
So if we have an offer, you work it as hard as you can and get that deal done. That's what real estate is today. This is Elena Kemper. She's been doing it for 44 or more years, and she's the best in the business. And I'm really pleased to know her and
Thank you.
have her as a friend. And either one of us would be happy to help you. Elena, how do people get in touch with you?
You can call me on my cell, 305-799-1184, anytime. I once worked with a reporter, probably 40 years ago. And I said, you can call me anytime on my cell. And he ended up calling at 2:00 in the morning and I didn't pick up. So, you can leave a message if I don't pick up.
There you go.
But Elena Kemper, 305-799-1184.
You got it. You heard it from the best. Until next week.